This is Philadelphia Eagles Now by Chat Sports. I'm Chase Sr., and no matter where you are or how you're tuned in, as always, thank you so much for making today's show a part of your day. There's a lot to get to here. We have some big news on Nakobe Dean, and we have some live OTA updates as the Philadelphia Eagles are on the practice field right now. And let's begin with Nakobe Dean. What a season he had last year. Unfortunately, this is how it ended in the wild card round at Lincoln Financial Field against the Green Bay Packers. He made a big play and a big tackle, and then he just stayed on the grass at the link, got up, moved slowly, and then he got carted off the field as he immediately was grabbing at that area of his knee. And the news, of course, came out that he tore his patellar tendon. That all happened on January 12th, 2025. And throughout the course of NFL history, these specific injuries to the patellar tendon have been very difficult to come back from. Either the recovery is long, and it takes a really long time for that player to get back to close to what they were prior to the injury, or they're never the same player. Sometimes these injuries have been career-ending because it's a very complex injury. Here's the best explanation here for it. Studies show that NFL athletes who have undergone patellar tendon repair have lower return to play rates compared to other injuries. Complete recovery after surgery can take up to 12 months, and some players may not fully regain their pre-injury form. Even with surgery, players may experience a decline in performance levels after the initial recovery period. The patellar tendon anchors the thigh's quad muscle to the shin, allowing the knee to flex and extend. That's the complexity that I'm talking about because it's so integral to running and cutting. It's not usual for strength and explosiveness to return at a reduced level. Patellar tendon injuries, including tears and ruptures, are a serious concern for NFL players, often leading to significant setbacks in their careers. And while a tear may not always be career-ending, it significantly impacts performance and return to play rates, with studies showing that only about 50% of players return to their pre-injury level. So glass half full, that's a 1 in 2 chance. Then Nakobe Dean can come back and play again like he did in 2024. But there's also a 50% chance, glass half empty approach here, that he will never be the same player. And it's such a hard injury to come off of because when you get an ACL surgery, for instance, you're able to at least walk and be weight-bearing after that surgery, and not long after you have to undergo that surgical repair. With that patellar tendon injury, though, you really have to be careful with the knee, with the quad, and sometimes it takes you a while to ramp up. And it was so unfortunate last year when this injury happened because of the year that Nakobe Dean was having. His first 2 years in the NFL, up and down play, had to deal with some injuries. Then he was fully putting it together under Vic Fangio, who's done a great job of developing and maximizing linebackers, alongside Zach Baun, who was a first-team All-Pro and a finalist for Defensive Player of the Year. Nakobe Dean looked like the player that he looked like at Georgia when he was the best off-ball linebacker in the country. 75.2 overall PFF grade, that was 27th among 189 off-ball linebackers. He ranked 8th in pass rush grade at the position, 26th in run defense grade. He was 6th in stops with 56, and 16th in pressures with 14, as Fangio used him as a blitzer. But Dean was also really instinctual against the run. Sometimes he was a liability in coverage, but if he can get back to that 2024 form, I do expect there to be a little bit of growth in that area. And sometimes he did make impressive plays when dropping back in coverage. Couple of key updates here over the last few days. There was this clip that went viral of the Eagles at the Palestra. If you've ever been there, if you've never been there, the cathedral of college basketball, one of the most historic basketball venues in the entire world. And so Nick Sirianni and the Eagles went there, and they were playing knockout. They were doing a three-point contest, some horse, One of the clips went viral because Saquon Barkley threw an alley-oop to Cooper DeJean. And while I love that alley-oop clip, what I kind of noticed was Nakobe Dean hitting a half-court shot behind his back, and then he looks back at Jalen Hurts and he's kind of flexing, jumping up and down, moving pretty well. Nakobe Dean is not in a brace. Nakobe Dean was not limping in this clip. Nakobe Dean, look at that smile. It's not just because of the half-court shot. He looks happy and he looks healthy. And then with Eagles OTAs underway this week, they hit the practice field on Tuesday, May 27th. Today, the 28th, they're inside the practice bubble. More on that in a moment because it looks a little bit different. And you see this clip, right, of Jordan Mailata getting out in space, practicing his blocks. Look at the background, though, right about here. You know who that is? In the number 17 jersey? Let's zoom in a little bit. That is Nakobe Dean in a practice jersey, not partaking in drills, not practicing, but he's at least on the practice field in a jersey. Eagles are not wearing pads. He obviously doesn't have a helmet, but that is a good sign that he's at least on the practice field. Now today, some of the media members were on hand for practice, and Nakobe Dean, Jahad Campbell, not practicing. That's expected. But it looks as though, it seems as though, Nakobe Dean is coming along a lot faster coming off of this specific injury than anticipated. And that right there is really big news. Now coming up next, we have some live updates from Eagles OTAs, and you do not want to miss it. So stay tuned for that. But first, I want to tell you about this great deal thanks to our friends at Fanatics. There are adult and kids hats available, and they're on sale right now if you go to chatsports.com/Super Bowl hat. This is the same hat that the Eagles are rocking after hoisting their second Lombardi trophy since 2017, and it's the same hat that myself and Chip have as well. So if you go down, use that link down below, you can find the deal for that hat. Again, kids and adult hats available. If you want some other Eagles Super Bowl merchandise, it's all on sale. We're in the summer, and it's not as expensive as it once was. Use that link. It'll redirect you to Fanatics, and then Fanatics will know that Chat Sports sent you. All right. The Eagles are inside the practice bubble at the NovaCare Complex in South Philadelphia today, and it looks a little bit different. A little bit of a new look. It's because the Eagles are now two-time Super Bowl champions. I love this photo here. It reminds players what the standard is for this Eagles organization, what they've accomplished, and what they're trying to aspire to be. And this year, that's back-to-back Super Bowl champions. To the left, though, you see Nick Foles and the Eagles celebrating Super Bowl 52. And now to the right, a second Lombardi trophy with images from the Eagles' Super Bowl 59 victory. And then obviously you see the Eagles on the practice field with a good view of that. Some injury news, some players who were on hand, not there, and then some lineup notes as well. E.J. Smith, friend of the show, went to Temple with him, covers the Birds for the Philadelphia Inquirer. Some players I have yet to see at the start of voluntary OTAs. I always think it's a good look to be there, though. If your work has an event and it's optional, I always feel as though, as a leader of the company, I need to be there, right? And so Bryce Huff, not there. Could that signal that the Eagles maybe are trying to work on a trade? He had a bad year last year. He was a non-factor in the playoffs. Everybody forgot about him, especially with the rise of Jalen Hunt. He's not there? Bryce Huff, what are you doing? Devontae Smith, Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens, Lane Johnson, also not there. Worth noting, Dickerson and Jurgens played through injuries in the Super Bowl. Looks as though Reed Blankenship also not there for the start of Eagles OTAs. Also of note, Cam Jurgens is there, but he is off to the side. Nakobe Dean update here. Nakobe Dean, Jahad Campbell leaving the indoor facility as the rest of the team started stretches. We have photos of that coming up here in just a second. Doesn't look like either will practice. Jahad Campbell coming off the labrum injury. Nakobe Dean with that knee. Here's a look at Andrew Makuba, 64th overall pick. And you can see he's definitely a little bit thinner, but is a similar build to C.J. Gardner-Johnson and plays a lot like C.J. Gardner-Johnson. More injury news here. Nolan Smith, he tore his triceps in the Super Bowl, the same injury that Brandon Graham suffered in Week 12 against the Rams on Sunday night. BG returned for the Super Bowl. There you see Nolan Smith. He has that bulky brace on his left arm, but he was on the field with the helmet on, partaking in drills. Here's a look, by the way, at Jahad Campbell, Nakobe Dean, leaving the bubble, going inside, probably to do some rehab and do some workouts. You see the length kind of on display here for Campbell. Long arms, long legs. Nakobe Dean is a little bit of a smaller linebacker. You see Jahad Campbell is a lot bigger than him. As for the quarterback taking the second string snaps behind Jalen Hurts, that's this photo right here. It is Tanner McKee. Tanner McKee is now QB2 because Kenny Pickett got traded to the Cleveland Browns. The Eagles did bring in Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and so DTR and Kyle McCord will duke it out to be QB3. Kevin Patullo did hold his first news conference as the new Eagles offensive coordinator. He didn't really say anything notable about his offensive philosophy. I asked him about that at the Super Bowl. We've played that interview a lot of times here on the show. He did say Chan Gailey, Nick Sirianni, his two biggest offensive influences. He said him and Sirianni challenge each other. They do have similar offensive philosophies, but different offensive philosophies. He also said Saquon Barkley is in, quote, regular season mode. He's amazed at how Saquon Barkley looks the same. He especially saw that with how Saquon was running drills yesterday in the passing game. Eagles put out a clip yesterday, Quinyon Mitchell one-on-one against Saquon Barkley. That's dog on dog. I've also talked about Kelee Ringo's size at the cornerback position. You see it here. He is towering over some of the other Eagles DBs. This is a guy who's about 6'1", over 200 pounds, who ran a 4.36 40-yard dash coming out of Georgia. Here's another look at some of the size and the length for Kelee Ringo, who's looking to lock down that outside corner role opposite of Quinyon Mitchell. Jeff Stoutland coaching up some of the Eagles offensive linemen, especially some of these rookies. You can't really see, but to Stoutland's right, down in this stance right here, guess who it is? Jason Kelce. He helped to save the tush push last week at the NFL owners meetings, and now he's alongside Jeff Stoutland in coaching this offensive line up. More notes here because I mentioned we're passing along some live updates. Azeez Ojulari, Moro Ajomo getting a lot of reps along the defensive line. Kelee Ringo, him and Adoree Jackson exchanging reps at right cornerback with Quinyon Mitchell, the other starting corner. Jalix Hunt had a sack of Jalen Hurts. I put that in air quotes because no contact, but they are doing 7-on-7s and 11-on-11s. Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, also the top two corners in the Eagles' base defense. So DeJean on the outside. Eagles' first-team offensive line with Dickerson, Juergens, and Lane absent. Mailata at left tackle, Matt Pryor at left guard, Brett Toth, not Drew Kendall, at center, Tyler Steen at right guard, and Darian Kennard at right tackle. So none of the rookies on the first-string offensive line. Interesting that DeJean is one of the outside corners, at least was, in the base defense. Kelee Ringo, Adoree Jackson also getting snaps there, as I mentioned. As of right now, Jalen Hurts, a perfect 8 for 8 so far in 7-on-7s. Looking sharp early on. A.J. Dillon running in the open field, looking impressive. He's obviously big, as we know. Lewis Seen getting some first-string snaps at safety. Andrew Makuba there as well. Dallas Goedert there for Eagles OTAs. Working on that deal, obviously, throughout the offseason was a big storyline between him and the Eagles. They bumped it down from $14 million to $10 million. It's good to see that he is on hand for Eagles OTAs. So good stuff right there. More news that we get, the more that we pass along to you That's why you subscribe to the channel. Just doing it on the fly. No biggie. We'll be back later with another show here on Eagles Now. So we'll catch you then, and go Birds.